Hey now! What is up, everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka Review King MB, and Smallville Rewind. This episode is entitled Rogue, and I'll be honest, I do not remember this episode, like, really at all. This was sort of like, wow, this is pretty out there. This premise caught me by surprise. Let's just start right off the bat at the beginning. There is this museum exhibition, like this grand opening at Metropolis, and Clark Kent is there. And it's funny how much of Metropolis we are seeing. Last episode, I think, was the first time. Now we're seeing Metropolis again here. If I were to just go off of my memory before this rewatch, I would have guessed that we didn't see Metropolis until like season 2. I'm very surprised that we are seeing this much of it in just the first season. Clark, he goes by this little case of this armor that has a symbol on it. Of course, him and Lex are talking about that. And I like the moment where Clark mentions that, man, I don't know if I would ever want to go into battle with something on my chest. They're definitely hinting and teasing at the Superman stuff hard, but it does give me a little smirk every time I hear them do it. Lana shows up, and Clark is very surprised that Lana is here. He's pleasantly surprised that Lana is here. He even says that Lex didn't tell him. Lex, of course, says, well, let me leave you two alone, as he just backs off screen. And man, I love Lex. I do. Not just because of Michael Rosenbaum's performance, but the likability of Lex in these early seasons, because we all know where Lex is going to go. We all know where this character's fate is going. But still, seeing him in the early years where he seems like he's genuinely and truthfully trying to be a good guy and trying to be a good friend to Clark, and this is one example of he's clearly trying to set Clark and Lana up. I appreciate that. When Lana mentions that, oh, hey, Clark, don't worry. Whitney over there is also having a rough time in Metropolis, and Clark looks over, and there you see Whitney sitting in the corner, and he looks uncomfortable, and Clark was like, oh, Whitney's here. Great. Clark didn't even hide his disappointment in Whitney being there. You can't convince me that Lana can't tell, that Lana doesn't know. And so Clark says, all right, I gotta leave. And very interesting that they brought in the actor that plays Whitney for like just that one shot. Maybe there was deleted scenes, maybe there's some other stuff that he shot, but it's wild to think that they brought him in just to sit there to show that he's present. He probably got paid decently to basically not do anything. So Clark goes outside and he sees this homeless guy sleeping by like the bus stop, and then this bus comes barreling down the street. The driver, I couldn't tell if like he had a heart attack. I don't know what was going on with the driver. He clearly shouldn't have been driving this goddamn bus. And he's crashing into parked cars, and he's coming down the road fast. And so Clark says, shit, I guess I have to do something. And he does this cool right in front of the bus, and he just like smashes his own shoulder into the front of the bus, stopping the bus completely, saving the homeless guy even though he doesn't wake up. He's just slept through all of that. Only the dog can appreciate what Clark just did. But not just that. Somebody else saw what Clark did. We see this dirty cop, who I think his name was like Sam Phelan. But I'm just going to call him Dirty Cop, because that's kind of the point of his character, is that he's a dirty cop. He sees what Clark did. He uses his ways to find out, get pictures of the cameras of Clark being there so that he goes to Smallville. He asks around. He gets his name. There's even a scene where the dirty cop goes to Lex, because in the security footage that he sees, Clark is next to Lex. So he asks Lex, and I love that Lex's immediate instinct is, sorry, dude, I don't know who that is. Like, Lex, come on, man. You can't tell me early on Lex was a piece of shit. You know, yes, he has a past. Yes, he has his own secrets, I guess. But you can't convince me that he wasn't looking out for Clark in a whole bunch of instances here. And before we get there, this woman, Victoria, also showed up at the museum, and she is like an old flame of Lex Luthor. And you see them throughout the episode where I guess they're sleeping together, right? Like she's kind of bumping his ego a little bit. There's this whole story of like she works for her father and she doesn't like her father, but her father sent her there to maybe get in with Lex so that they could work together to do something. And Lex figures out what she's doing, but he's also just kind of taking advantage of the fact that she doesn't like her father. So he's basically going to conspire something with her to just be with him. It's all kind of nonsense and all just sort of there to be there. The actress that they have playing Victoria is very attractive, so don't get me wrong. It definitely helps present a side of Lex that we haven't seen too much of between his past and between some of the people that he's dealing with on the business side of things. Another side plot is we have Principal Kwong, who comes into the torch room and he basically fires Chloe and suspends the torch. He says he's upset that Chloe keeps printing papers that are talking about the meteor freaks, that are talking about the weird stuff. And he's complaining of like she doesn't have proof, she can't be doing this. And I'm like, you don't have proof? What do you mean? You're telling me the principal is the same motherfucker who dealt with the football coach, right? And Hothead, and he was manipulating fire and creating fires in the office. His car caught on fire. No proof. I really don't understand where Principal Kwong was coming from here. It was just a device for him to shut this thing down. And obviously, Chloe is upset about this. Lana goes and talks to the principal herself. And Lana's able to get the Torch newspaper thing back on track, back and running. But the problem is that he makes Lana the editor. Chloe finds out about this and says, "What the fuck?" She's visibly upset. Like, Allison Mack, I know a lot can be said about her in more recent years and a lot of the bad stuff that she got herself into, but not enough is probably said, at least recently, about how great of an actress Allison Mack was. The scene where she finds out that Lana basically took her spot and she has tears in her eyes. She just sounds dejected. She sounds like she got played. She even says to Lana, "I thought that you were more than this. I thought you were my friend. I thought I could trust you, and clearly I was wrong." And just, she's so upset that like I felt bad for her, even though I knew Lana didn't do this on purpose. I knew Lana didn't F her over on purpose. I still felt bad for Chloe. Even when Clark comes in and says, "Hey, Chloe, calm down. Like, this actually could work because this and that." And Chloe just looks over at him and says, "Clark, cut the shit. We all know that anything involving Lana, you're going to take her side." And there's an awkward moment where Clark and Lana kind of look at each other like, whoa. See, Lana knows. Lana knows that Clark likes her, and she's just choosing to either ignore it or choosing to just pretend like it's not there. We get a moment where Clark goes home to his barn, I guess his fortress of solitude. And it's kind of weird because Clark is like calling out, "Hello, is anybody home?" And it's like, well, Clark, you're not in the house portion, right? Like, you're just in your own barn. I don't know why he was so, like, maybe he just had a strange feeling that something was up. He definitely must have felt like something was off, but couldn't figure it out. Maybe with his super hearing, he heard something. Wait, does he have super hearing yet? I don't know. He should have used his X-ray vision if he was wondering if somebody else was there, fuck, I just realized he has X-ray vision. Look around. Oh shit, there's somebody hiding up there. Well, he didn't do that because he sees this police badge in the middle of the ground. He goes over to pick it up. This huge, what was it, a motor, something that was hoist up, falls on him. He doesn't catch it necessarily. It falls on him. He falls to the ground, but then he just throws it across the room. I'm sitting here going like, Clark, how do you not know that this is a goddamn setup? Yes, it's a setup. The dirty cop shows up and says, "Ha ha! I got you, and now you're going to do whatever the hell I want. I will blackmail you going forward." And Clark, to his credit, does stand up to him and say, "No, I will not do whatever you want." And the guy says, "Well, I now know your secret, and I can go expose you. I can tell everybody. I can tell the world, and it will fuck your shit up." So Clark obviously is he's put in a shit spot. Now I like that Clark goes and tells Martha and Jonathan immediately, tells the parents. This is something that I was it Talkville? It might have been Talkville that I was listening to, where I think Goff and Miller, the showrunners of the show, where they talked about how they wanted this show, the dynamics and the relationship between Clark and his parents. He wanted them to get along. He wanted Clark to have a good relationship with Jonathan and Martha, that he could come to them for help, or that he was honest with them. This wasn't going to be like your Dawson's Creek, or I think he referenced Buffy, where it's like, oh yeah, the parents are non-existent, or they're just antagonistic. They're there to start fights and get angry, and that's it. Where this is an actual good relationship, and that's what I love the most, is that Clark just goes to them and is honest with them. Jonathan, in fact, even goes to meet with this dirty cop character. And very interesting that not only does the cop say that, like, hey, I want your son to do whatever the hell I need him to do. He has gifts, he has powers, blah, blah, blah. And Jonathan loses his shit. Jonathan, like, grabs him, throws him on top of the table. Mind you, they're in this coffee shop that we've seen 175 times. And I like that everybody in the coffee shop's like, whoa, what's going on here? And I like that the cop's like, hey, we're just talking here. We're just talking. But Jonathan lost his cool. He lost his temper. This is a couple times where we've seen that Jonathan Kent has a temper. But even though he has a temper, I like that never played a factor into his parenting with Clark. His temper mostly comes from wanting to protect Clark. It's not like he has a temper and he lashes out kind of randomly, or gets into fight with Martha, or gets into fights with Clark. Like, no, his temper comes from he's just worried about Clark and worried about something happening with him. And so I very much like that. I very much appreciated that. Now, this awkward interaction did not deter the dirty cop from going to Clark after school and saying, hey guy, get in the car. I don't care. Get in the car. They go and they drive back to Metropolis, and the dirty cop wants Clark to break into this guy's like office or his home, whatever it was. He has a safe that has confidential files that the cop wanted for whatever reason. I think he might have explained it, but I was barely paying attention, right? So the point is, he wanted Clark to do this for him. He wanted the files. And Clark reluctantly does all of this. But the moment when Clark just drops the safe out the window on top of the cop's car, crushes his car, he calls the cops, and the cops show up. I go, holy fuck, Clark, man, it's a huge risk. It's a huge gamble, but respect. It's respect that he wasn't willing to just sort of be a pawn. He was proactive. He took some action, and he got the drop on this cop. Now, also, I knew, given how early this happened in the episode, that this wasn't the end. But I didn't remember this episode. I completely forgot all of this. So I forgot what happens next, where This dirty cop plants a dead body in the barn. He plants a gun in Jonathan's truck, sends the cops there with a warrant to search the place. They find the body, they find the gun. So they arrest Jonathan Kent for murder. Holy shit! You want to talk about I got your ass back. Like, this guy is clearly not somebody to fuck with. He's it was kind of scary. I was kind of nervous for Clark of like, what are we going to do here? How does Clark get out of this? Again, I didn't remember. I liked when Lex goes to Clark in the barn and says, "Hey man, you got to be careful with this Fallon guy because if he has something on you, he will use it to his advantage. He can't be trusted. He's dangerous." And Lex has his own history with this cop. He mentions that Lex's father paid this cop off for various things in the past. And that does create a moment where when Lex sees Clark after the father got arrested, Lex does go up to Clark and he does say, "Hey, let me help. I can get you your father the best lawyers. I can do this, I can do that." And Clark, I get that Clark was upset and that he maybe was just feeling pressured, but Clark was kind of being a dick to Lex. He should have taken Lex's help. I'm sorry, but don't let your freaking pride get in the way of helping your dad out by getting whatever lawyers that Lex was offering. Now, Lex does say, "Hey, what does this guy have on you? What does he have on you?" And I know that you could take that as, oh, Lex is just trying to use this situation to find out whatever the secrets are about Clark, and Clark doesn't want to tell him. But maybe it's just the way Rosenbaum plays it. Maybe it wasn't written this way, but he delivered it this way, where he felt genuine. He felt like he actually wanted to help Clark, and that he actually felt bad, and that he actually wanted to help the Kents. Like, I felt bad when Clark just basically says, "Leave me alone, mind your business, I gotta do this on my own." I felt bad for Lex. I'm rewatching this now thinking that, man, is Clark the reason why Lex turns bad? I had my sort of theories on maybe, right? Maybe. But rewatching scenes like that, I can't help but say, yes, yes, Clark may be the reason why Lex turns bad. It's hard to go against this. And there's a nice scene where Clark talks to Jonathan in jail, which was sad to have to see Jonathan in that type of situation. There's a very nice moment when Clark goes to the torch and sees Lana there. And Lana says, "Hey, I heard what happened. I'm sorry. I know your father didn't do it." They go back and forth. Clark mentions, like, "Hey, do you ever feel like being adopted ruined your aunt's life?" Because that's how he's feeling about his parents. And Lana has a great sort of story where she says she's had that moment with her aunt where she ran away and she says to her, like, "Do you regret adopting me?" And her aunt said, "No, it's the best thing I ever did was adopting you." And that made her feel secure. It made her feel good, and hopefully that story helps Clark feel that way. It's a nice bonding moment because sometimes you forget that they have that in common. Even though we all know what happened to Lana's parents, I guess it's because we don't spend a whole lot of time with Lana's relationship with her aunt as her mother figure. It's easy to forget that that's even the case. And so the dirty cop comes back and says, "Hey, you tried to fuck me. Well, I fucked you back. So if you want to undo this, if you want to get your father out of the situation, help me out one last time," which would it really have been a last time? I doubt it, but what the hell else is Clark going to do? And when the cop has Clark go in the car with him to drive off, I love the fact that Lex was there. Lex was there in his car, basically waiting outside the Kent's farm because he knew something was going to go down with this cop, and he wants to help. Fuck it, man. He wants to help. Maybe he had his other motives. Maybe he did. But I love that he did that. So he follows them. They go to the museum in Metropolis, and the dirty cop calls in and says that there's a bomb outside so they can use Clark to break into the museum. He wants Clark to steal whatever the jewelry that was in there, millions of dollars. He basically wants to take the money and run. And Clark helps him reluctantly. He breaks the stuff. He pulls the thing out. But then Clark does this tremendous thing of throwing the bag of jewels outside the window in front of the cops, basically fucking the dirty cop over again. There's a cool moment where the dirty cop shoots at Clark because he says, "You might be strong, but you're not bulletproof." And I thought this was going to be a moment where we find out Clark is bulletproof, that he was going to shoot Clark and the bullet was going to bounce off of him. But no, we went into bullet time. And Clark saw the bullets coming at him, and this might be the first time that he realizes that he's able to move out of the way of bullets. Like it's like he's that fast. He's faster than a speeding bullet. Maybe that was the point of this scene, as opposed to him just getting shot with it. But he moves out of the way. The other cops come in. A big shootout happens. The dirty cop gets shot. And as he's dying, mind you, Clark left. Clark sped out of there. Lex went up to the dirty cop and said, "Hey, what do you have on Clark?" That Lex asking him, "What do you have on Clark?" That is a little suspect. I will admit that's the one time where it's like, is this really the time? Is this really the right moment to find this out? Do you want to find out what's up with Clark because you're his friend, or because you want to use it? I don't know, man, because I spent all that time earlier defending Lex, but that one moment was super sketchy. The dirty cop says, "Screw you, Luthor," and then dies. So that was kind of hilarious. Chloe finds out that Lana actually got her job back, because like Lana, she wrote this article that makes the principal look bad, right? That he's silencing the torch and he's doing all this and that. He's complaining about it. And Lana says, "Well, hey, I followed your rules, but if you want somebody that's going to do better, you should hire Chloe back." And Chloe just happens to be there. She says she's willing to adhere to his guidelines if she gets hired back. And Chloe thanks Lana, like, wow, I was wrong. And Chloe has an interesting comment where she says something about she didn't want Lana to come between her and Clark. And at first it's like, oh, because Chloe is in love with Clark. Like, I think that's kind of there in front of your face. And even Lana says, "I'm not going to come between whatever you and Clark have." And Chloe says, no, like, we're just friends. And so, did Chloe actually mean because she has feelings for Clark, or did she mean she doesn't want Lana to come between their friendship? I guess that's the gray area. We don't 100% know. Lana also says that they're just friends, her and Clark, but that's a bunch of bullshit. And we get a moment where Lex is reviewing the security footage from the museum, and he sees this quick speeding like flash when Clark sped out of there, and Lex is reviewing the tape. So does Lex know that that's Clark? He definitely knows something's up. So Lex might know something a little more than we all realize. I thought this episode was a lot of fun. I thought this episode, twists and turns, kind of kept me on the edge of my seat. I felt nervous for Clark throughout the entire thing. I didn't remember what was going to happen with this cop. So I'm like, how are we going to move forward with this guy being out there, knowing his secret? Great stuff. Jonathan, they dropped the charges for Jonathan. He's not still in jail. Because they found out that the dirty cop was doing dirty things, Jonathan is now freeing Claire. So that's all well and good. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of Rogue? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later.